Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
So in the last class, we have discussed that given a system, we can obtain its state model in various forms, right? We can use physical variables, we can use phase variables, we can use canonical variables, right? So our conclusion is for a given system, the state model is not unique. The state model of the system of a particular system is not unique. And this fact can be proved mathematically, and that proof is known as similarity transformation, right? So what we want to prove? We want to prove that the state model of a given LTI system is not unique. So how to prove that? Let's assume that the state model of a system is given by, just a minute. Okay, you better write it down. The state model, suppose we have obtained a state model which is given by x dot is equal to ax plus bu. Write it down. And y is equal to cx plus du, right? Now, in the state model, x is the state vector, x1, x2, x3, xn. These are the n components of the state vector, and u is the input vector, and y is the output vector, right? Now let us assume that there exists another state vector, or we can assume another state vector denoted by z bar. This bar denotes that it's a vector, right? And it will have, if x has n components like x1, x2, x3, xn, then z will have also n components like z1, z2, z3, zn. Okay, so let us assume a different set of variables denoted by z bar, and we assume that x bar is an n-dimensional state vector, and this z bar is related, this set of state variables are related to this set of state variables by this equation, where x bar is equal to p into z bar, right? So naturally, P is a matrix having a dimension n by n. This is a column vector having a dimension n by 1. This is another column vector, a different set of state variables having a dimension n by 1. Hence, P will be a matrix having a dimension n by n. Now we assume that P is a constant matrix and P is a non-singular matrix. So it's written over here, P is any n by n non-singular and constant matrix. So if P is non-singular matrix, that implies that P inverse of this matrix will exist. Clear? So if x is equal to pz, then if we take the first derivative, and since p is a constant matrix, then we'll get another set of equation which is x bar dot is equal to pz bar dot. Clear? Why? Because p is a constant matrix. So x bar dot will be equal to pz bar dot. So This is our initial state model given by x dot is equal to ax plus bu and y is equal to cx plus du, what you have written just now. Now here in place of x will replace z. So x bar dot is equal to, from this equation, pz bar dot and ax will be a into px. From this equation, we can write ax as apz, and in the second part, since no x is present, hence it will be bu. So this equation can be reduced in this form, where z bar dot is equal to, you see, p inverse ap into z plus p inverse b to u. Okay, so since z is one n by 1 column vector, hence this equation will give us n number of, or rather this equation will give us n number of first order differential equations, where now z is our set of state variables, right? And p inverse ap can be written as a dashed. So now our new state model is given by z bar dot is equal to a dashed z plus p inverse b can be written as b dashed. So the second part will be b dashed u, where a dashed is equal to p inverse ap and b dashed is equal to p inverse b. So our new state equation involving z as the state vector is given by z bar dot is equal to a dashed z plus b dashed u. Now what will happen to the output equation? So here naturally a dashed is the new system matrix and b dashed is the new input matrix. The output equation is equal to y is equal to cx plus du. So in place of cx, we'll substitute pz. So the output equation, the final output equation will be y is equal to c dashed z plus du, where c dashed is equal to c into p, the new output matrix. So our first state model was x dot is equal to ax plus bu, y is equal to cx plus du, and with the help of the similarity transformation, we have obtained a different state model having state variables as z, and the new state model is given by z bar dashed is equal to a dashed z plus b dashed u and y is equal to c dashed z plus du, right? Now since p is not any fixed matrix, only these two criteria have to be satisfied for p. P should be a non-singular matrix as well as P is a constant matrix. So we can find infinite number of such P matrices, and hence we can obtain for a given system actually theoretically infinite number of state models can be obtained. So the state models of a system is not unique. Understood? Have you understood this?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, we have seen that if we use phase variables, then very easily from the given transfer function or from the given differential equation, we can obtain uh, the state model of a system, right? phase variables actually directly connects the state model to the transfer function or the differential equation. Okay. So now our task is to find out whether or to prove that whether from the state model we can derive the transfer function of the system or not. Again, please do recall that in this course we are learning, we are studying linear time invariant system, hence transfer function is valid. So from state model, whether we can obtain the transfer function or not, that is to be established. So the link between transfer function and phase variable formulation has already been demonstrated. The transfer function from a state model using phase variables can be obtained by inspection. So another method is to draw signal flow graph for the given phase variable model and then obtain the transfer function using Mason's gain formula. We have not discussed chapter 4. In chapter 4, actually, we are supposed to learn signal flow graph and Mason's gain formula. Now let us consider any generic state model for a given system. And let's suppose that the state model is given by x dot is equal to ax plus bu and y is equal to cx plus du. Now, since we are trying to find out the transfer function, hence it's obvious that we are considering a C system, single input, single output system. Now, let us consider this equation x dot is equal to ax plus bu. So if we take the Laplace transform of this particular equation, then we'll get the transformed version of this equation given by Sxs minus x0 initial condition minus x0 will be equal to Axs plus Bus, right? Since now we are considering the variables in the transform domain, hence we have used this capital letters. So Sxs minus x0 is equal to Axs plus Bus. This equation we have obtained by taking the Laplace transform of this equation. Now, and if we take the Laplace transform of this output equation, then we'll get ys to be equal to cxs plus dux. Now, just concentrate on this particular equation. So after site transposition, we'll get Sxs minus Axs in the left hand side, and in the right hand side we'll get x0 plus bus right down. So in the left hand side we'll get Sxs minus Axs, and in the right hand side of the equation we'll get x0 plus bus. Done? Hello? Have you written down the equation? Please do rest. Okay. Now S is a single variable in the left hand side, and the second term is AXS, where A is one n by n matrix, and we'll have to subtract this from SXS. So how it would be dimensionally possible? If we multiply S with the identity matrix having a dimension n by n. having a dimension n by n, then the first term will be Si into xs minus axs, and after subtraction it will become Si minus a into xs. So in the left hand side, we'll get a term which is Si, where I is the identity matrix having the dimension n by n. Si minus A into xs, and in the right hand side, we'll have terms which are x0 plus bus. Can you follow?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So from that particular equation, we'll try to find out the expression of x, and that will substitute in this output equation. So xs will be Si minus A inverse into x0 plus Si minus A inverse into Bu into Us. Write it down. If required, I'll repeat. Done. Yeah, proceed.
Yes, ma'am.
Then xs is equal to, as I said, xs is equal to Si minus A inverse x0 plus Si minus A inverse Bus. So our output equation Ys will be equal to C into, in place of xs, now we'll substitute Si minus A inverse x0 plus C into Si minus A inverse Bus, and this term will be there. So the last term will be plus Dus. Okay. Now, since we are trying to obtain the transfer function of the system, hence the basic assumption is the initial conditions are 0. So this term will vanish, and Ys will be equal to C into Si minus A inverse Us plus small d Us. Why small d? Because Us is the single input, right? So transfer function is given by Ys by Us. So our transfer function Ts will be Ys by Us, and that will be equal to C into Si minus A inverse B plus D. And we can write it as C into adjoint Si minus A B into B whole divided by determinant of Si minus A plus D. Also, the transfer function can be expressed as C into adjoint Si minus A into B plus in the numerator plus D into determinant Si minus A whole divided by determinant Si minus A. Done? Done.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Go through the derivation and please check whether you have understood this or not. Understood the derivation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, if we express the transfer function in this form, that is C adjoint Si minus AB plus D into determinant Si minus A whole divided by determinant Si minus A, that means in the denominator, we are getting a term which is determinant Si minus A, right? And if we assume that the system matrix has terms like A1, A2, A3, etc., then determinant Si minus A, if we expand this, will get one nth order polynomial which is function of S, or in other um, on the other hand, we can say that QS, which is basically a function of S, QS is equal to determinant Si minus A, and that is an nth order polynomial. Do you agree? Do you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So, if we write QS is equal to determinant Si minus A is equal to 0, that means we are getting the characteristic equation of the system. Or in other words, determinant Si minus A equal to 0 will be one nth order equation, and that is the characteristic equation of the system having a system matrix A. Agree? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
So if we solve that polynomial nth order, or rather nth order equation, then we'll get n number of roots of the characteristic equation of the system, which has the system matrix denoted by A, right? Or in other words, if we solve that particular equation, then we'll get n number of closed loop poles of the system. Have you understood this? Have you understood this?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, this is interesting to note that given a system, we can obtain almost infinite number of state models, right? No problem. But whatever be the state model, from the state model, if you want to find out the transfer function, we'll find that the transfer function of that system is unique. And that can be proved. The proof is beyond the scope of this class. So whatever be the state model of the system, we can use phase variable, we can use physical variables, we can use canonical variables, right? But whatever be the state model, from that particular state model, if you want to find out the transfer function, or for different state models, if you want to find out the transfer function of the system, we'll find that the transfer function of the system is unique because the poles and zeros of the systems cannot change. Now, diagonalization. So we observed in earlier sections that state model of a system is not unique. Some of the state models presented employed physical variables or phase variables or canonical variables, right? Now, from already we have discussed these points. From application point of view, the physical variables for the system representation are most useful as the resulting state variables are real physical variables which can be easily measured and which can be used for control purposes. If we can measure those variables or physical quantities, then we can use those state variables for feedback purpose, and hence using state feedback we can control the system. However, the corresponding state model in this case is generally not convenient for investigation of system properties because those state equations are generally coupled in nature, those are not decoupled in nature, and hence taking time response. That means performing integration is very difficult. So that's why those state models are not very suitable, conducive for investigation purpose and for evaluation of the time response, evaluation of XTs, right? Now, the canonical state model where the system matrix is diagonal, right? There we have seen that the state equations, n number of state equations are decoupled in nature, and very easily we can perform analytically, we can perform integration and we can obtain the time responses of all the state variables, right? So that's why canonical uh, or normal form or canonical form its own merit. So, what can be done? We can obtain the state model of the system using physical variables and for analysis purpose, not for control purpose, not for design purpose, but for preliminary analysis purpose, if we can convert that state model into a canonical form, then the system matrix will come out to be a diagonal one, and the state equations will become decoupled in nature, and we can perform integration very easily and can obtain xt. So we can see the time response of the our time responses of all the state variables, right? So that's why often we obtain a suitable state model where the state where the system matrix is not diagonal, basically diagonal in nature, but with the help of this diagonalization technique, we convert the state model into a canonical or normal form so as to get a diagonal system matrix. And after that, preliminary analysis could be done very easily, right? That's why diagonalization is a very important issue which we must consider. We must learn how to perform diagonalization. So let us consider an nth order multi-output state model MIMO system where x bar dot, that is a column vector, x bar dot is equal to ax plus bu and y is equal to cx plus du, and A is the system matrix, non-diagonal system matrix, B is the input matrix, Y is the output matrix, and D is the transmission matrix. And as I said, A in this particular model, the system matrix in this particular model is non-diagonal. Okay. Now, let us define a new set of state variables denoted by Z, and let's assume that Z and X, the original set of variables and new set of state variables or state vector Z are related by this relation, that is X is equal to mz. X is equal to mz. Again here M is a constant singular matrix. So M is one n by n non-singular and constant matrix. So under this transformation, that means we have transformed this initial set of state variables into a different set of state variables denoted by Z. So under this transformation, again, this equation x dot can be written as x dot will be mz dot and the right hand side will be ax, that is a into mz plus bu, just like simulated transformation. And finally, z dot will be m inverse amz plus m inverse bu. Can you follow?
Okay, ma'am.
And y will be equal to cx, that cz plus du. So these are my new, this is my new state equation and this is my new output equation. And in case of new state and output equations, the state vectors are denoted by Z, right? Now if we can choose a matrix A having a dimension by n for a generic nth order system such that M inverse AM, this operation M inverse AM will result in a matrix which is a diagonal matrix, then our purpose is served. In other words, we'll have to find out a matrix A such that M inverse AM. This operation will result in a matrix having a dimension n by n, and the matrix will be a diagonal matrix. Clear? Then our purpose will be served.
Clear, ma'am.
So if we can find out such a matrix M, then that matrix M will be called a diagonalizing matrix or a modal matrix. A diagonalizing matrix or a modal matrix. So if the matrix M can be selected such that M inverse AM, this operation will give us a diagonalized matrix. uh, this is incorrect. The symbol should not be A, the symbol should be this one, which represents a diagonal matrix. Please note the correction. So if the matrix M can be selected such that M inverse AM is a diagonal matrix open delta, this one. So then the model or state model presented in this equations will be a canonical state model. So under this condition, the matrix is called the diagonalizing matrix or the modal matrix. So the new state equation or the state model of the system canonical form after this transformation, after diagonalization, is represented as Z dot is equal to the diagonal system matrix open delta Z plus BU, and Y will be C tilde Z plus DU, where this diagonal system matrix is equal to M inverse AM, and under this transformation the input matrix B tilde will be M inverse B, and the output matrix C tilde will be CM, right? And the transmission matrix D will remain same. Understood? Understood?
Yes.
So our next task is to learn how to find out a diagonalizing matrix or a modal matrix A. For that, we'll have to review some knowledge on basic mathematics. So let us consider a set of homogeneous equation. I guess you know what is meant by homogeneous equation. No forcing function will be there, hence the right hand side of this equation, of this set of equations, will be 0. Right? So homogeneous equation. Can you recall? Please respond.
Yes, ma'am. Can recall.
So n number of such equations are, let us write it in this form: f11 x1 plus f12 x2 plus dot 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 f1n xn is equal to 0. First equation, f21 x1 f22 x2 plus f2n xn equal to 0. And the last equation is fn1 x1 fn2 x1 plus fnn xn is equal to 0. So these are the set of n number of homogeneous equations. Now in vector matrix form, these equations can be represented as one n by n matrix and multiplied by a column matrix having elements x1, x2, xn, and in the right hand side we'll have another column matrix having elements which are all zeros. And the elements of this n by n matrix are f11, f12, this one f1n, f21, f22, f2n, fn1, fn2, fnn. So this matrix is one n by n matrix. Please note that this element will be f1n. So again, this equation can be written in a composite form as this matrix can be represented as capital F having a dimension n by n, and this column vector can be represented by x, and this column vector can be represented by 0 vector. So F bar into x bar, this is the matrix, this is the column vector x bar, is equal to 0 vector. Okay. Similarly, you see, if we take from this matrix, if we take one column vector, this column vector, then f11 into x1, f21 into x1, f31 into x1, fn1 into x1. Can you follow this? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
So this column vector can be represented by this f1, f1, the second column vector having elements which are f12, f22, fn2, f12, x2, f22, x2, fn2, x2. So in a different form, this equation can be represented as f1 into x1 plus f2 into x2 plus fn into xn equal to 0, where fi is the ith column vector of the matrix F. Right? So again, let's look at this equation. So our objective is to find out the solution of this equation. So the solution x will be equal to f inverse into 0. Look at this equation. So the solution vector x, obviously, if we go to the basic equation, here the variables are x1, x2, xn, right? So we are trying to find out the values of x1, x2, or rather, in other words, we are trying to find out the solution of this set of homogeneous equation. So from this equation, it's clear that the solution vector x is equal to f inverse 0. So this can be written as adjoint f divided by determinant f into 0. Right? Agreed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So you see, if the determinant of f is not equal to 0, that means f is a non-singular matrix, and in other words, the rank of the matrix f is equal to n. The dimension of f is n by n. So if f is a non-singular matrix, then f will be a full rank matrix and its rank r will be equal to n. I guess you know all these things. Can you recall?
Yes,
Okay. So so if f is non-singular, then let's try to recall. We'll get trivial solution of x, and x1 will be equal to x2 will be equal to x3 will be equal to x4 dot 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 will be equal to xn will be equal to 0. So the vector x will have a solution which is a 0 vector, x1 0, x2 0, xn 0, and this solution is known as trivial solution because all the values of x, x1, x2, x3, xn are 0, right? So vector fi in this equation, in this equation, then will be linearly independent. Now, if the determinant f does vanish, that means if determinant f is equal to 0, that means the matrix is not a full rank matrix now, and the rank of the matrix R will be certainly less than n. Under that particular situation, the determinant of f will be equal to 0, right? And under that particular condition, two or more vectors fi, two or more vectors fi, that means fi, fj, fk, will be linearly related. Now, to proceed further, so far, have you understood everything?
yes, ma'am.
So, now, to proceed further, first let us consider a 2 by 2 matrix, the simplest case. So F is a matrix having a dimension 2 by 2 and the elements are F11, F12, F21, F22 as shown, right? So the determinant of F can be computed as summation of I varying from 1, actually I is assuming in this case two values, one is 1, another is 2, and in a compact form, the determinant can be represented as Fji into Cji, where Cji is the cofactor of this element Ji. The value of j will be either 1 or 2.
Right, ma'am.
ঠিক আছে? So using this expression, we can find out the determinant F of this 2 by 2 matrix, and this can be written in this form as well, right? So Cij is the cofactor of the element Fij as per convention. Now further, if we consider this summation where I is varying from 1 to 2, actually 2 by 2 matrix, again assuming two values 1 and 2, if ji and if ji multiplied by cki, where cki is the cofactor, or it can be written as summation I is equal to 1 and 2 if ij cik will be 0 if j is not equal to k. So if you can establish this fact either for this expression or for this expression, then for the other one you'll be able to prove it. So just check whether summation I varying from 1 to 2 if ji cki will be 0 or not under the condition j is not equal to k. Do it. That's it. Done.
Done, ma'am.
0 এসছে তো সবার? Under this condition, if j is not equal to k,
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম।
this summation will be equal to 0. So now we can combine this one, this condition, as well as the previous one, the determinant one. So we can write that summation I assuming values from 1 to n. Now we are extending this particular concept for an n by n matrix F, for a matrix F having a dimension by n. So summation I varying from 1 to n if ji cjk, right? Cjk is the cofactor of the element f jk, is given by determinant f into delta jk. Delta jk, j also varying from 1 to n, right? So here delta jk will be equal to 1 if j is equal to k. That means if j is equal to k, then delta jk will be 1 and this summation will give us the value of the determinant of the matrix F having dimension n by n, right? And this delta value will be equal to 0, if j is not equal to k. Already we have seen that in this expression, if j is not equal to k, then the right hand side will be 0. So we can combine these two conditions with the help of single equation, which can be written in this form, and delta jk will be equal to 1 if j is equal to k and will be equal to 0 if j is not equal to k, right? Now if the determinant itself, if delta f itself is 0, That means F is a singular matrix. So when delta F is equal to 0, then this summation, determinant F is 0, then this summation will be equal to 0 for all values of k. So it will not depend upon, the value of the summation will not depend upon whether j is equal to k or j is not equal to k. The summation will always yield a value which is equal to 0 if the determinant F itself is 0. Right? So let us consider the jth equation. Jth equation. So the jth equation will be fj1x1 plus fj2x2 plus dot 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 fjn xn. So the jth equation will be fj1x1 plus fj2x2 plus dot 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 plus fjn xn is equal to 0. So what is our objective? Our objective is to find out the solution vector x. That means our objective is to find out x1, x2, x3, xn. Right? Now let us assume that x1 is equal to p into ck1, p into ck1, x2 is equal to p into ck2, xn is equal to p into ckn, where p is some constant. P is some constant, right? Then this equation can be written as p into fj1 ck1. In place of x1, we are substituting p into ck1. In place of x2, we are substituting p into ck2. Hence, this equation is having this form, that is p into fj1 ck1 plus fj2 ck2 plus dot 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 fjn ckn, and that will always be 0. Right? Whatever be the value of this constant p, all these terms, if we add all these terms within the bracket, will get 0. Right? Do you agree? Look at this equation. This equation or this summation is always equal to 0 if determinant f is equal to 0. When determinant f is not equal to 0, that means f is non-singular, then we know the solution vector, and the solution vector or the solutions are trivial, or solution is said to be a trivial solution, where x1, x2, x3, xn, all these are equal and equal to 0. The problem is when F is a singular matrix, then we'll have to find out some non-trivial solution for x1, x2, xn. And that's why we are going through this process. So we have seen that this summation always yields a value which is equal to 0, right? So if we assume x1, if we assume the solution x1 to be equal to pk1, if we assume x2 to be pk2, where p is some constant, then just consider the left hand side. So the left hand side polynomial will be p into fj1 into ck1 plus fj2 ck2 plus dot 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 fjn ckn. And from this expression, we know that the left hand side polynomial will always be equal to 0. The sum of all these terms will be equal to 0.
হ্যালো ম্যাম,
Yes.
এখানে ম্যাম যে 46 এর যে নিচের যে লাইনটা আছে ওখানে
হুম।
ম্যাম হচ্ছে x1 ইজিক্যাল টু যে পি সিকে ওয়ান। তো মানে মানে ম্যাডাম বলছে এখানে যে x1 x2 x3 xn মানে হচ্ছে এই যে সবগুলোর জন্যই হচ্ছে এই যে পি, এই যে কনস্ট্যান্টটা এটা কি
হুম।
মানে হচ্ছে একই হবে, সবগুলোর জন্য কি সেম
হ্যাঁ
হবে?
হ্যাঁ 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 হ্যাঁ, p is a
কিভাবে
constant.
বলতে পারছি মানে?
মানে আমি p টাকে 1 ও নিতে পারি, কিন্তু কোনো অসুবিধা নেই।
আচ্ছা মানে ম্যাম,
The value of p could be 1.
আচ্ছা
যদি 1 নাও হয়, তুমি দেখো আমি যদি p টাকে কমন নিয়ে নিই, 1 নাও হয়, we are interested about this, the value of this summation, তাই না? তাই তো, fj1 ck1 fj2
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম।
ck2, তা এই সামেশনটা তো সবসময় will be equal to 0.
বাট ম্যাম বলছিলাম যে পি কনস্ট্যান্টটাই মানে হচ্ছে x1 x2 যে সবগুলোর ক্ষেত্রেই যে পি কনস্ট্যান্টটাই হবে, মানে একটার ক্ষেত্রে p1 দিয়ে রিলেটেড হবে না ck1 এর ক্ষেত্রে, আর আরেকটার
না না
ক্ষেত্রে।
না 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 না, আমি এখানে কি করার চেষ্টা করছি, আই এম ট্রাইং টু ফাইন্ড আউট দ্য সলিউশন ফর x1, নন ট্রিভিয়াল সলিউশন ফর x2, xn, so and so forth, right? So look at this expression. That's why we have assumed যে let x1 be some p into sec1. আমি যদি এটা p1 নিই, এটা p2 নিই, তাহলে দেখো আমি তো p2 কমন নিতে পারবো না। কমন নিতে না পারলে আমি তো এই এক্সপ্রেশনটা পাবো না। এই এক্সপ্রেশনটা না পেলে আমার তো ব্র্যাকেটের টার্মটা 0 হবে না, এবং ব্র্যাকেটের টার্মটা যদি 0 না হয়, I won't be in a position to claim that yes, the solution or the value of x1 is p ck1. You get my point?
Okay.
These are the solutions for x1, x2, x3, xn. So the solution for x1 will be k1, solution for x2 will be some pk2,
ck1 টা যে কোফ্যাক্টর তো ck1
ck1, ck1, ck2, ckn. That means we are taking cofactors along a particular row. তাই না?
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম।
তাহলে যদি এইভাবে আমি x1 টাকে চুজ করি, তাহলে দেখো আমার এই কন্ডিশনটা স্যাটিসফাইড হচ্ছে, and hence the left hand side from this equation we can see that the left hand side is always equal to 0. So this equation is being satisfied for these values of x's. বোঝা গেল?
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম, হ্যাঁ ম্যাম, বোঝা গেল।
So the term inside the bracket is equal to 0, will always be equal to 0 for all values of j, and hence this could be considered as non-trivial solutions for these x values. So the solution vector x will be equal to p ck1, ck2, ckn. Why this p? Okay. So these are non-trivial solutions, and the equations will be linearly dependent on each other. So we therefore observe that the cofactors ck1, ck2, ckn taken along the kth row yield a solution for this equation. Equation 39 means f11 x1 plus f12 x2 is equal to 0, so and so forth, right? These are the set of homogeneous equation for which we are trying to find out the solutions. So obviously the solution is non-unique because k can have any value from 1 to n, and p is an arbitrary constant, right? And if for a particular choice of k, if we find that all the values x1, x2, x3 comes out to be equal to 0, That means we'll be getting the trivial solution, and we are not interested about the trivial solution, and hence we'll have to choose some other row, and we'll have to find out some non-trivial solutions for this given set of n number of homogeneous equation. So consider this particular example, and if you check, this is a 3 by 3 matrix, right? So had it been a full rank matrix, the rank would have been n, but if you check, you'll find that the rank of the matrix is 2. Hence, the solution of the homogeneous equation fx is equal to 0 can be obtained by forming this equation. The first equation will be here. Just imagine the column vector x1, x2, x3, right? So the first equation will be, first homogeneous equation will be 1 into x1 plus 1 into x2 is equal to 0. So x1 plus x2 is equal to 0. The second equation will be 0 into x1 plus 1 into x2 plus 1 into x3 equal to 0. That means x2 plus x3 is equal to 0. And the last equation is minus 6 into x1 minus 11 into x2 minus 5 into x3 is equal to 0. Here. Now, if the matrix F is not a full rank matrix, then we can have infinite set of solutions. Okay. Trivial solution is unique. The solution vector will be 0. And if the matrix is not a full rank matrix, and if the matrix is a singular matrix, then we can have infinite number of solutions. So you see, these two equations are dependent. If we choose a value of x1 to be 1, then x2 will be minus 1. And if x2 is minus 1, x3 will be plus 1. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
And depending on the values of x1 and x2, from the third equation, you can find out the value of x3. Similarly, if I take the value of x1 to be 2, then it will be minus 2. And accordingly, the value of x3 will change. Again, I can take the value of x1 to be a negative 1, that is minus x1. Then x2 will be plus x1. So you see, we can have infinite number of solutions, set of solutions. So there are many sets of values for xi. Here I is varying from 1 to 3. One solution is shown. Now, eigenvalues and eigenvectors. মনে আছে eigenvalues?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. So let's now turn our attention to the equation Ax is equal to y. X is a vector in the state space. Y is a vector in the state space. X has n number of components, right? X1, x2, x3, xn. Y has n number of components, y1, y2, y3, yn, right? So in the n-dimensional state space, I am trying to show you a 3-dimension state space. So we can generalize that particular concept, and we can conceive an n-dimensional state space, x1, x2, x3, xn, right? So in that particular state space, x is a state vector or a vector, y is a vector, and with the help of this matrix multiplication, A is a matrix having a dimension n by n. So with the help of this operation, matrix operation, we are converting this x vector, this particular vector, to a different vector altogether, right? So this vector y, the result of this operation, when a this matrix gets multiplied with this state vector, we are getting a different vector. It can have a different direction and different length, right? So this transformation can be thought as a transformation of one n by 1 vector x to a different n by 1 vector y by this n by n matrix operator A. Now we'll rewrite this equation in this form: ax is equal to lambda x, where lambda is some constant. Lambda is some constant. So ax is equal to lambda x. That means A, this n by n matrix, is getting multiplied with this state vector, and after transformation, you see in the right hand side we are getting a state vector or a vector in general, which is x multiplied by a constant, right? So what is the implication? The implication is that implies that with this transformation in the state space, we are getting a vector which is in the same direction with this vector x. Only the magnitude of this resulting vector will vary depending upon the value of this constant lambda. Am I clear?
Clear, ma'am.
So we'll get a vector in the same direction. So the question which we'll like to answer here is whether there exists a vector x such that the matrix operator A transforms it to a vector lambda x, lambda is a constant, that is to a vector having the same direction in the state space as the vector x. So the initial vector and the resulting vector will be in the same direction, only their magnitude will change, will vary depending on the value of lambda. Now our question is about the existence of the solution of this equation. So whether the answer to this question is the solution of the equation ax is equal to lambda x. That means if we can find out a solution to this equation, then we'll be able to transform a vector in the state space into a different vector in the same direction having a different magnitude. Okay. Now this equation, again, just remember Si minus A. So after site transposition, this equation can be written as lambda into I, where I is the identity matrix having a dimension n by n, where the dimension of the matrix A is n by n. So this can be written as lambda I minus A into x is equal to 0. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if we expand the left hand side of this equation, first of all, please note this is of the same form if x is equal to 0. The vector matrix equation that we are considering so far. So here you see if if the matrix A uh, has elements like A1, A2, A3, An, right? And if we expand this left hand side, okay, I'll come to that later on. Now, first of all, this will result in a set of homogeneous equation. Do you agree? right? So this set of homogeneous equation, just like fx is equal to 0, have a non-trivial solution if and only if determinant of lambda I minus a is equal to 0. That means if this matrix lambda I minus a, if this matrix is a singular matrix, then only we'll get non-trivial solution. And if the matrix lambda I minus a is non-singular, then we'll get only trivial solutions where x1, x2, xn will be all zeros. So if you want to obtain non-trivial solution, then the determinant of this matrix lambda I minus a should be equal to 0. So please look at this equation, and if we assume that this matrix A has the identical elements like this matrix, the system matrix, okay. So elements of this matrix A and the elements of the matrix that we are considering right now just have same elements, then just like Si minus A, determinant Si minus A, we can expand the left hand side. Now the polynomial in the left hand side will now be a function of lambda. In the previous case, where we considered determinant of Si minus A, right? Determinant is I minus a, then we discussed that the polynomial will be an nth order polynomial, and the polynomial will be a function of s. So if we apply the same logic, we can argue like this, that the left hand side will result in an nth order polynomial, and the polynomial now will be function of this lambda, of this variable lambda. Do you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
So now this one can be represented as some polynomial which is function of lambda and is equal to lambda to the power n plus a1 lambda to the power n minus 1 plus a2 lambda to the power n minus 2 plus dot 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 an, and the right hand side is equal to 0. So we are equating this polynomial to 0, right? And because of the similarity between the characteristic equation, that is determinant Si minus a is equal to 0 or QS, and similarity between that equation and this equation, we also call this a characteristic. The polynomial is called the characteristic polynomial, but not for the system, the characteristic polynomial of the matrix A. Okay. Again, you see, if I solve this equation, and if I assume that the coefficients of this equation are same as the coefficients of the previous equation, which was Qs equal to s to the power n plus a1, s to the power n minus 1, so on and so forth, equal to 0, then here, if we solve this equation, we'll get n values of lambda. And these values, the solution of this equation, the lambda values, which are the solutions of this equation, are called the eigenvalues. Yes. Are called the eigenvalues of matrix A, and the equation determinant lambda I minus a equal to 0 is called the characteristic equation corresponding to the matrix A. Clear?
Here, ma'am.
Okay. So we are comparing this with this equation. So because of this similarity, we can say that the eigenvalues, a number of eigenvalues, if this matrix A is our system matrix A, then this eigenvalues, a number of eigenvalues, are identical with the roots of the characteristic equation of the system, or we can say that the n number of eigenvalues are basically the closed loop poles of the system, having a system matrix A. So from all these equations, it's observed that the closed loop poles of the transfer function Ts are given by this. So it is therefore concluded that the eigenvalues of the state model and the closed loop poles of the system are same. So naturally, all the conclusions established on system stability based upon the location of transfer function poles, that is the roots of the characteristic equation, are therefore valid for eigenvalues of the state model, right? That means we can say that if all the eigenvalues of the system matrix A lie in the left half of the S-plane, then the system will be a stable one. And even if one single eigenvalue lies in the right half of the S-plane, then the system will be an unstable one, so on and so forth. So thus a state model is stable if all its eigenvalues have negative real parts. Now, let us assume that for a particular value of lambda is equal to lambda I, satisfying this equation, that is determinant lambda I minus A is equal to 0, and the previous one, that is this equation, lambda I minus A into x is equal to 0. Equation ta lekho to, likhe rakho. এটাও লেখো। So for a particular value of lambda is equal to lambda I, we can write this particular equation, determinant lambda I into identity matrix I minus A equal into x is equal to 0. One single homogeneous equation of the set of n number of homogeneous equation. So determinant lambda I into the identity matrix I minus A, x is equal to 0. So what is our objective? Our objective is to find out the non-trivial solution vector x So now let's assume that x is equal to mi. This is a column vector. Remember, this is a column vector. X is equal to mi be the solution of this equation, of this particular equation. So mi is the solution of this equation for lambda is equal to lambda I. So the solution vector mi is called the eigenvector of A associated with the eigenvalue lambda I. Correct one thing. So this is basically a set of n number of homogeneous equation, not a single one. A set of homogeneous equation for lambda is equal to lambda I. Why? Because the dimension of I is n by n and the dimension of A is n by n. So we'll get a solution vector. If you try to solve this set of n number of homogeneous equation, we'll get a solution vector x having n number of components m1, m2, m3. And in a composite form, we are denoting that particular solution vector as mi. This is a column vector as mi, and mi is the solution vector for lambda is equal to lambda I. So this solution vector mi is called the eigenvector of A associated with the eigenvalue lambda I. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So this my will have n number of components, m1, m2, etc. So as said earlier, solution of the previous equation depends upon the rank of the matrix lambda I minus A. If R is the rank of the matrix, then there are n minus R independent solutions or eigenvectors that you know. R is less than n. So hence, if the eigenvectors of A are all distinct, we are considering this particular case where the eigenvectors are all real and distinct, then the rank of lambda I minus A is n minus 1. Anyway, just you don't have to go into this detail. So we know that the solution vector can be obtained by taking the cofactors of the matrix. Remember F, here F is lambda I minus A. So taking the cofactor of this matrix along a particular row. So mi will be ck1, ck2, ckn, where k can assume values 1, 2 up to n. Understood?
Yes, ma'am. Understood.
Oh. So m1, m2, mn be the eigenvectors. All these are vectors. So m1 is the eigenvector for the eigenvalue lambda 1 corresponding to the matrix A. m2 is the eigenvector corresponding to the eigenvalue lambda 2 associated with the matrix A, right? So am, now we'll use this m1, m2, mn to form the modal matrix or diagonal matrix. We'll see. So let's see that if we consider AM, then it can be expressed as A into M1. This dot 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 means we are writing down this vector, then we are writing down this vector, then we are writing down this vector, so on and so forth, right? So M1, M2, Mn. পাশাপাশি ভেক্টরগুলোকে লিখছি। So AM is equal to A into M1, M2, Mn. So that can be expressed as A into M1, A into M2, A into Mn. Right? So let's get back to that particular equation. So if X is for lambda 1, the solution vector will be M1. So this equation can be read as A into M1 is equal to lambda 1 into M1. Similarly, A into M2 will be equal to lambda 2 into M2. And lastly, A into Mn will be lambda n into Mn. Do you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
So A into M1 can be written as lambda 1 into M1. A into M2 can be written as lambda 2 into M2. A into Mn can be written as lambda n into Mn, right? So this can be written as M into our diagonal matrix, where the elements of the diagonal matrix are, or rather the diagonal elements are lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda n, and the rest, all other elements are simply 0. So it's a diagonal matrix. This can be written as M, because M is M1, M2, Mn. So this one can be written as M into this particular matrix, which is a diagonal matrix. And the diagonal elements are the eigenvalues of the matrix A. Clear?
Here.
So the diagonal matrix can be obtained with the help of this operation, that is M inverse AM. The diagonal matrix is equal to M inverse AM. So this matrix M1, M2, Mn, or M, as per definition, can be called to be the diagonalizing matrix or the modal matrix for this given matrix A. And how to find out the modal matrix M, that is M1, M2, Mn, by taking the cofactors of along a particular row of the matrix lambda I minus A. So this is our modal matrix M. Now, it's obvious that A and the diagonal matrix will have the same characteristic equation. You see, the elements are diagonal elements are lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda n, right? So we'll have the same eigenvalues or same characteristic equation, and therefore the eigenvalues are invariant under this transformation. Right? Now, if A is expressed in Bush form or companion form, that means if we use phase variables, A is equal to 0, 1, you see the upper of diagonal elements are 1, and the last row contains the coefficients of the differential equation or transfer function or characteristic equation. So that means the system matrix is expressed or represented in Bush form or companion form. Then for this particular matrix, there is a special modal matrix which is called uh, please correct this one, Vandermonde, MONDE, Vandermonde matrix. MOND, Vandermonde matrix. And the Vandermonde matrix V is 1. The first row will contain all ones. The second row will contain the eigenvalues lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3, lambda n. The third row will contain the square of this eigenvalues lambda 1 square, lambda 2 square, lambda 3 square, lambda n square, and obviously then naturally the last row will contain the elements which are lambda 1 to the power n minus 1, lambda 2 to the power n minus 1, lambda 3 to the power n minus 1, lambda n to the power n minus 1. And this matrix is really a modal matrix for this system matrix A that can be proved. The proof is not in the syllabus. So let's discuss one example. So this is, suppose the system matrix A, which is, you see, a non-diagonal matrix. So we want to convert the state model into a canonical model. So the first of all, we'll have to find out the determinant lambda I minus A. So lambda I minus A, lambda into I, that means we'll get a diagonal matrix lambda 0. In the second row, it will be 0, lambda 0. In the third row, it will be 0, 0, lambda. Okay. And if we perform the subtraction, then we'll get a matrix which is lambda minus 1, 0, minus 3, lambda, minus 2, 12, 7, lambda plus 6. Please check whether these values are correct or not. And determinant lambda I minus A is equal to 0. ঠিক আছে?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now we'll have to find out the characteristic equation corresponding to the matrix A, and from there we'll have to solve for the 3 eigenvalues lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3. So we have done that. We'll get lambda plus 1 into lambda plus 2 into lambda plus 3 is equal to 0. So 3 by 3 matrix, third order system, hence 3 closed loop poles or 3 roots of the characteristic equation or 3 eigenvalues. So lambda 1 is equal to minus 1, lambda 2 is equal to minus, please correct this value, lambda is equal to minus 3. Now, to find out the cofactors, first of all, we'll have to form the matrix lambda I into the identity matrix capital I minus A. So let's do it for the first eigenvalue, which is lambda 1. Lambda 1 is equal to minus 1. So determinant lambda 1 minus A, or it's not the determinant, it will be the matrix. Lambda 1 minus A will be the matrix. Just in this matrix, the lambda value will be simply minus 1. So the matrix will be minus 1, minus 1, 0, minus 3, minus 1, minus 2, 12, 7, 5. So M1, let's take the cofactors along this particular row. Please check. So M1 will be C11, C12, C13. Let's check whether these are cofactors or not. M1 is a column vector, and the elements are C11, C12, C13.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a matrix, so we can divide it by 9, right? So it will be, that means here the P in this case will get the first eigenvector, which is 1 minus 1 minus 1. So we can apply the same technique or you can obtain the eigenvectors by solving this equation. But I guess this one is a better method. Similarly, we have formed the matrices lambda 2I minus A and lambda 3I minus A, and we have found the cofactors and the, the solution vectors M2, which are 2, minus 4, 1, and M3, 1, minus 3, 3. This is the second eigenvector. This is the third eigenvector. So the modal matrix can be obtained by placing the eigenvectors side by side. So in this case, the modal matrix will be M1, M2, M3, or M3. So the first eigenvector was 1, minus 1, minus 1. Then we'll write down the second vector M2 eigenvector, which is 2, minus 1. And then we'll write down the third vector, third eigenvector, which is 1, minus 3, 3. তো নিজেরা হাতে সলভ করবে, আমি ম্যাটেরিয়ালটা পাঠিয়ে দেবো, নিজেরা হাতে সলভ করবে। So this is our modal matrix, and let's check whether this is actually our modal matrix or not. So for that, we'll have to compute M inverse. M inverse is this one. So the diagonal matrix, this should not be here. The diagonal matrix will be M inverse AM. So this is our M inverse. This is our system matrix, non-diagonal system matrix A. And this is our M. So if you multiply this, then the resultant matrix will find that the resultant matrix will be a diagonal matrix, and the diagonal elements are the eigenvalues of the system matrix A, which are minus 1, minus 3. নিতে করবে এটা। So this is Vandermonde matrix, it's correctly spelled here, and this derivation is not in the syllabus. If someone is interested, you can go through this derivation. So do you have any question? Do you have any question? Do you have any doubt, any query, any question? If the answer is no, then I'll close the file.
No, ma'am.
কেউ কি একটু অ্যাটেন্ডেন্সটা স্ক্রিনশট নিয়ে আমাকে হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে পাঠিয়ে দিতে পারবে?